Welcome to our second navigational video on utilizing, navigating, and managing incidents within the Cherwell application. Today we're going to focus a little bit or specifically just on the incident panel in the form on creation of tickets and then managing some of the tickets that you have. And in the previous video we talked a lot about this main dashboard that would come up, or even things like the My Work dashboard, which is what most of you will see when you log in to the particular tool. We talked about utilizing the dashboard and kind of identifying the different breakdown of the work that's been currently assigned to me, searching for users using the quick search panel, as well as accessing all of the open queues across the top of this particular form. Today we're going to focus specifically on the creation of a new ticket and walk you through that step, and then also look at a couple of existing tickets and go through the process of managing those tickets. So I'll go through and start by creating a new incident, and the easiest way to do this, and there are actually two ways to do this, but the easiest way to do this is to use the New button up in the top corner. I can click on the little drop down menu right next to it. There's something that says New Incident and another that says New Knowledge Article. Now in this particular case I'm going to leave New Knowledge Article out of this. We'll save that for another video and another particular time. We're just going to focus on creating a new incident, or a ticket as many of you are used to referring to it in the past. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to create a new incident, and this brings up a blank incident form. And in this case you'll be able to see all of these little items right here marked in red, and just kind of zoom in on some of the different fields that you might have to be required to fill out when you create a ticket. And that's what these fields indicate. When they're in red, these are fields that have to be filled out. And in order to create a ticket, really all you have to do is focus on this particular quadrant. The only data that has to be filled out to create a ticket is just in this section here. Everything else is really kind of managing and utilizing already existing or open tickets. And we'll talk about some of those features as we kind of move through this video. But let's start by creating a ticket and assigning it to a particular user. And in the name field, I can search for a user's last name, I can search for a user's ID number, I can search for other pieces that we might have in our tool. I generally say focus on ID number or last name because you're going to pull up the most accurate information. So I'm going to start by searching for a last name in this case. Two users pop up in our user panel. I can double click on the one that I want to pull in, and it auto populates the information here with that user's information. Now if I want to look at more specific information on that user, I can click on any of the fields that are up here with the exception of email, and we'll talk about that a little bit later as an additional feature. So I could pull up that user's ID number. I can see all of the information about that particular user. Most of it's listed on that pane, as well as the current tickets that are assigned to them, or the tickets that were resolved in the past, and we'll talk about that piece as well. So I'm going to press cancel down here at the bottom. So the first thing that pops up when you assign a user to a ticket is this tab down at the bottom, this Users Issues tab, and it says that this user currently has 58 open incidents. Now that's a lot of incidents for one particular user, and in most cases you're never going to see anything more than just a handful of tickets that a user might have open at any given time. And I just want you to take a look at the ones that are in gray and the ones that are in black. The ones that are in black are still open in an active state. The ones that are grayed out have been resolved or closed and are no longer in an active state. So one of the things that you really need to focus on when you first get into the tool is ensuring that you're not creating a duplicate ticket. And a lot of times we'll see people who don't go look at the call history and heat, and we see duplicate tickets that get put into the system. And in this case we do not want to create a duplicate incident for this user, and this user does have a lot of open incidents. So say we want to look at this particular issue. You'll notice you have a binocular view and you have a little blue arrow. The blue arrow will actually take me to that record, and it will close this particular record out. The binoculars will just give me a view of that other incident to make sure it might not be the one that I actually need to open. So in this case, I'm just going to click on the binoculars. It's going to pull it up and pull up that particular incident. In this case, that's not the particular problem that I'm creating the issue for, so I'm going to go back. But if I clicked on the blue arrow, it would have prompted me to abandon this particular issue and then would have taken me to the other record. So just keep that in mind. Look at the issue description. You can look at the binocular option first to find out if it's really the ticket or the incident that you need to utilize or not. So I'm just going to say we're going to create a brand new incident, even though this user already has 58 open incidents. The first thing that pops up is preferred contact information. This is required. If there is data listed here in this phone area, you can verify that information with the user, and instead of having to type all this information in again, you can hit the plus button. The one thing that I want you to really remember is that the most important part of creating an incident is getting appropriate contact information. And if you don't have enough contact information in these fields, it's very hard to touch base with the user. It reduces our ability to stay in touch with them or to reach out to them, and it kind of creates a handicap for the individual that's assigned the ticket. Now the other thing is it doesn't have to be numbers. I can put in text in this case. I could put in send email instead. So there are different things that I can put in this particular field. It does have both phone and text-based capabilities. I'm just going to copy in this particular user for us to use in this case. So now let's give this a good description. This is a test video showing people how to use the tool. You know what? And I'm going to intentionally misspell a word. So you'll notice that when I misspelled a word in this particular case, we no longer have an excuse to send out issues that haven't been spell checked, because this tool does have a built-in spell check. I can right-click on that particular word and pick the appropriate word to come up and replace it. Just keep in mind that we do need to be reviewing the content that we put in here. I tell everyone, best rule of thumb is that every ticket description should have multiple sentences in it to describe the entire issue and exactly what's going on, a minimum of 3. So since I've only got 2 right here, I'm going to add my third sentence. I am adding my third sentence. Alright, so now I've got a decent description here of the particular problem. How was this particular call received? And that's where call source comes into play. Did it come in via chat, email? Did it happen out in the field when I was out with a customer and they caught me while I was out in the field? Was it a phone issue? Did it come in via our self-service tool? Or was it walk-in? Did they come to your office, or did they come as a walk-up to our walk-up desk? So in this case, let's just say we were out in the field. And one of the things that you'll notice right off to the side is the ability to add attachments or links to a particular incident. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to click on the little attachment form, I'm going to add in an attachment that I have. When I add an attachment, you'll notice the attachment bar pops up across the top. Now, one of the new features that we have that's completely different from Heat is that I have the ability to come in and add a link to a ticket. So say for instance I did a Google search and wanted to find out some particular information about this issue that maybe would help the next person who comes in and works on this particular ticket. So I'm going to do a Google search. I'm just going to say let's just do a search, not for TUC, let's do a search for TCU. So let's pull up the main TCU webpage. I pulled up this link. You'll notice down at the bottom corner, once the page loads up, I won't wait for the page to load up. You'll notice down at the bottom I've got an OK button where I can add this link. So I'm going to press the OK button. You'll notice up in the top corner where the attachments field is that I now have a link that I can click on and pull up information. So this is a great way to be able to add additional information to a ticket. Remember that our end users can come in and put in tickets as well from our self-service portal. So it's another great way to be able to add specific detailed information to tickets that you normally didn't do in the past. And then the bottom area really comes into categorization of tickets, and our categorization structure is quite a bit different than it was in heat. In the heat structure, our categorization was focused on what actions did you as the consultant or the person working on the problem have to do to resolve that particular ticket. We're flipping it around as we're moving towards a more service-based or service catalog type of situation, where now the items that we have in here are more requests that a customer would make. What is the customer asking me to do? So, I need a new mailbox, or I need to increase my mailbox quota in email. These are requests. These are all designed to be based around requests that a user might be making. So instead of identifying a user that might have been blocked off the network because they had a virus infection or copyright violation, it would be the user requesting, I'm having trouble getting on the network. What's my problem in that particular case? So those are a couple of the different things that you just kind of have to think about that will be a little bit different with this tool. We'll send out a service catalog or a service structure and categorization process that you'll get when you come to some of the initial training sessions to give you an idea of what's out there. So before I fill these out, one of the things I'll let you know about, because I can just drop these down, it's a 3-tier category structure. You can use this search field here to search for specific information about a particular categorization. So say for instance I wanted to do a flag reset, I could go through the process of typing in flag reset. I hit the enter key. It's automatically going to search for flag reset, and the only one that it found, it automatically categorized that ticket. So I'll show you if I was going to manually do it. Let's say I wanted to do computer management. We were having trouble with a desktop or laptop, and I wanted to request a repair in this case. I would go through the process and assign that. Now you'll notice as I have gone through and changed these assignments, this specific screen in the center has changed, and here's where the real power of the tool comes into play. The specific screen, which is very similar to the detail screens that we saw in heat early on, this is like a mini knowledge base and form builder tool compiled together. And so as I change the categorization and the structure of how I've assigned this particular ticket, you're going to see, or incident, you're going to see different pieces of help information and questions that come up based on how you categorize that ticket. So let me go back up and do that flag reset again that I was pulling up early on. Password, and let's go to flag reset. You'll notice that I've got help information built into the side as well as form information here where I can check a box and say what I did in that case. While you are not required to fill this data out, it is an important part of being able to ask the user all of the appropriate questions up front instead of having someone contact them back at a later date to get that particular information. So if you're going through the process of creating a ticket, it's extremely important that you review and identify the information that comes in here. It may not always apply to how you've categorized that ticket, but if it doesn't fit at all, you need to be rethinking how you categorize that ticket, especially since we're dealing with a new structure that might be located somewhere different. And the services are fairly straightforward. If I'm dealing with my account management, this is something that I'm dealing with from an account standpoint. I want to change my account. I want to create my account. Computer management, so a laptop or a desktop or a tablet. Physical problems with those machines in this case. So things like the operating system has failed or there's a hardware repair that needs to take place. That is different from things that you would see under software applications. So software applications would be things that you install that are not part of the operating system. So installing Adobe Creative Cloud, which is part of our license structure, or Microsoft Office. So just keep that in mind as there's a separation between computer management and software applications. Anything on the web would be listed under web. Video and surveillance would be cable TV, digital signage, or our camera surveillance system. These are very, very self-explanatory, fairly easy to use, and I encourage you to refer to the Excel document that we're providing with training to kind of get a feel for some of the stuff that's out there and how you might categorize a ticket. So the very last thing that I have to fill out in terms of creating this ticket is priority. Now priority is now based on a matrix based on urgency and impact. So impact would be either company-wide, all of TCU is having the problem, departmental, just a department's having an issue, or an individual, just me, I'm having a problem. And then the urgency is identified. Do I need it now? Do I need it in a couple of days? Do I need it a month from now or 6 months from now? Or is it not really that important? Just get to it when you're available. Keep in mind that as an individual, the highest level of priority that I can have, no matter what the problem is a level 3. We're really trying to manage how we put this process in place and where our priority comes from. And I talked about a little bit earlier in the previous demonstration video under dashboards that the tickets come up in red when it's a priority 1 or it's a particular VIP user. In this case, even if you were a VIP issue and it was a very high level, it would still be a priority of 3. And I'll show you a little bit how it differentiates out VIP users from higher priority or priority 1 issues. In this case, I'm going to say it is a priority 1 issue just to show you what it looks like. So I click on priority 1, I see priority 1 listed here, I get the lightning bolt as a reminder. If I had put a category 3, those would not have shown up. And then I'll show you also where the VIP option comes up. So I'm going to pull up a user that we currently have marked as a VIP. Those are managed separately. That's not something that comes out of PeopleSoft. Those are managed within the tool, and we mark specific VIP users. So if you don't see a VIP sign come up against somebody that you know should be, make sure to report that to your supervisor. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up a particular user, in this case that's marked as a VIP. This user has this identifier that comes up here, and remember, when the consultant who's assigned that ticket or the individual who's assigned that ticket looks at their grid view, they're going to see it marked in red with a little person's icon or person's face next to them. So I'm going to go ahead and just leave the priority alone, and I've got my VIP issue listed here just so you kind of get an idea of how this works. So at this point I have filled out all the red. I could hit the save button, but I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going to go through and show you how you can assign a particular asset to a ticket in this case. So I've got an asset field here. I've also got an asset tab down here at the bottom. But I'm going to stick with this asset field right here. This is where I can assign a single asset to the ticket. If I want to assign multiple assets, I'll use the tab down at the bottom, and we'll talk about that when we get into the tab space down at the bottom. So I'm going to come in, go to Asset, I'm going to click on the button next to this, and it's going to pop up all the assets that are associated to this user. You see right here, show configuration items for customer. What if I wanted to add another asset that was not assigned to this customer? I could go in and say show configuration items for all customers. Then I could type in and search for a particular item. So I'm going to go in, hit the enter key, and I pulled up a particular incident. Now I could always go back and look for this user. I'm going to click on this one again. Oh, that one didn't show up under that user, but that was why I was looking for under all customers, just to kind of show you that demonstration. So I'm going to come in, go ahead and double click on this one for this user. It's going to put up the host name of the computer listed right there. This includes all of the data that students are registering devices in CloudPass, so anything that's in the registration system from there also comes into play. So you would get the MAC address of the device and everything else, but the host name of the device would show up here, which in most cases the students don't know about their devices, but the faculty and staff do because they need to remote to their devices. So you'll see the name listed here. When I added this one, you see that an asset, at least one asset, was added here, and I could come in and add more later, but we'll talk about that at a later time. The user down issue is something that I went over in the previous tutorial, and we talked about the importance of user down and what it means. And in this particular case, if I marked this ticket as a user down, it's immediately going to pop up in red. And remember, if you mark this down, there are additional emails that go out to different groups across the IT department about the fact that there's a user down because we have a very quick turnaround time and response time for user down related issues. But I do want to show you one part of this. If I went ahead and removed this asset and I tried to check this box, you'll see I get a little warning area. And anytime I try to create a ticket that I have not filled out specific information, this is the type of warning that you're going to get. And you'll also get something up at the top that kind of drops down saying, here are all the things that you still need to do in order to create this ticket. But I'm going to move my mouse over this and it says you must associate an asset before you can select this feature. If a user is down, their computer is broken, and they cannot do the work that they need to do, you have to assign an asset so the consultant that works with that individual knows ahead of time exactly what asset they're working with or what problems they might have. So I'm going to go back, I'm going to go ahead and associate an asset. Just press OK. If I click this again, it'll show up in red. But remember, you get the error message if you don't. I'm not going to check this in this case because this isn't a priority issue, but I am going to go through and create this ticket. So this ticket has not been created yet. It's only been kind of noted at when I started the creation of the ticket, who it was created by, but that's back over here in this area. And I have multiple save buttons across the entire form. You've got a save button here, you've got a save button here, and you've got one up here. And this is the one I really want to draw your attention to. The one up in the top corner, if it is blue, and in this case, like the one where I have the mouse right now, that means that there's something that I need to save to this ticket. I've taken an action to this incident, or it's not even been created yet, so I need to hit the save button. If it's grayed out, that means that there's no action that I've taken that's not already been saved, and I don't have to click the save button to go anywhere. And remember, if I try to get off of a particular ticket, it's going to remind me, hey, you need to come back in and save this ticket, or do you want to just forget about it? And you say no. And so you'll see that several times as you try to move on to different pages. If I tried to click on the home button, it would pop up and say, save changes to this incident. Do you want to do that? Do you not? I'm going to say cancel in this case so we can create this particular incident. So I'm going to hit save. You'll notice how I talked about earlier about how the save button would gray out if I didn't have anything to save. Well, I've created the ticket, so now I don't have anything to save in this particular case. So now let's focus on the other pieces of the ticket. So consider this a ticket that's already opened, and if an issue was assigned to you, this is kind of what you would see. You would see the description, who it was assigned to, and the classification of that particular ticket. Do not hesitate to change the classification of a ticket if it is not categorized correctly when it's assigned to you. And do understand that categorization at the front end may change as you find out more about what that particular issue is later on. So it may start with one type of request, and when it gets down to the end, the user really didn't define what they needed up front, and it's really something different towards the end, and so I may need to change that classification. So let's look at these three fields right here. We talked about the specific screen. I mean, I can fill this out. I can save information, hit the save button, populate those forms, or I can read the knowledge information that's been added to it. But let's look at the particular ownership and service level and status fields that are back over here, and they're really broken up into three areas. This space down here is being reserved for future BOMGAR integrations, which we will add pretty soon after we launch, but just keep in mind that this will be a little bit different after this video is created. So let's talk about ownership. In the previous ticketing system with Heat, everything was based on who owned the ticket, and then you had assignments that you could assign out to individuals. Well, in this case, we've brought that together. We've pulled them together. Everything is based on ownership now, and in order to change ownership, you create an assignment, and that changes the ownership from one person to another. We no longer have situations where we have an owner of one ticket and the ticket's assigned out to someone else, where we create tickets that were lost, or we had a lot of places where there was a loophole and things were not closed out appropriately or weren't marked appropriately, and we could end up losing tickets if you weren't careful, you didn't know the process. In this case, there's no way that can happen. And as we talked about in the previous video, if there is not a team assigned or an individual assigned, and you have to have a team assigned in order to assign an individual, but if there is no team assigned, this ticket automatically shows up in the IT support open queue. So if I clicked on the IT support queue, I would see the ticket. I'm going to go in and look at created date. I'll resort this list. and right there's my VIP user that I created a ticket for. This is a test video. I'm going to double click on that particular one, so just to demonstrate how this particular ticket showed up in that open queue. So there are a couple of different ways that we'll go through assigning tickets. I can assign just to a team, I can assign to a team and then assign it to a specific individual, or I can take ownership of a particular ticket. So I'm going to come in and show you how to change these two fields right here. And remember, anytime you change an assignment to just a team, there's going to be an email that's going to go out to that entire team saying an issue has been assigned to their open queue. If I assign to a particular individual, then that individual will receive an assignment email saying that a ticket was assigned to that particular person. So just keep in mind, anytime you change the ownership team or ownership individual parts of this particular incident, there's going to be some emails that go out. And anytime you make changes to the incident form and you're not the owner of a ticket, the owner is going to receive an email saying that somebody updated their ticket. So just keep in mind, when you make changes, the owner is going to know about those changes via email, but they're also going to be able to see them when they come into the incident form. And there's also this take ownership piece. Now, taking ownership means I could assign the ticket to me in one click without having to go through the process of changing the team and changing the individual that's assigned. So if I was going to go through and take ownership of this ticket, I could immediately click the take ownership button and it would fill in my default team and it would assign it to me directly. I could click the save button and I'm ready to go. But I'm going to walk you through the change process to create an assignment to go to that specific user. So I'm going to say, you know what, I just want to assign this to the IT support open queue. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to click on IT support, I'm going to press OK. Now it's going to ask me to assign it to an owner. So if I wanted to assign it just to the IT support open queue or any other queue for that matter, I can just skip this, press OK, and it's going to pop up and say, please identify what needs to be done. This needs to be fixed. And the point with this particular form is that it's supposed to help describe to the individual who's receiving the ticket what needs to be done, what needs to be taken care of. Say we were escalating something up to the hardware group. It looks like the hard drive might have to be replaced, or it looks like we're going to have to do some data recovery. If I was sending it to network, we're having some problems with the network wireless signal in this area, and we've tested this and done this. It looks like some adjustments might have to be made to an AP. Or if I was going to send it to systems and maybe request an increase to a mailbox, this is where you put in information about what needs to be done to the ticket. Don't always expect the individual who's being assigned the ticket to read through all of the journal notes and all of the descriptions and everything else. This is your opportunity to get an email sent to them where their attention is focused on just what needs to be done with that issue. So I'm going to press OK. As soon as I do that, you'll notice that I have a new journal note added here where it says journals unread, and I have a notes field listed right down here on assignment notes that says this needs to be fixed. So it's telling me that I assigned a ticket to the IT support open queue. Now, in this case, I'm going to go through and assign this to a particular individual. So remember, I could click the Take Ownership button and take ownership of this particular ticket, or I could go through and click the Change button. If I take ownership, no email goes out to anyone about taking over a particular ticket. If I click the Change button here and assign to a team or assign to an individual, both of those will end up getting emails. So I'm going to go through the process of creating a new assignment. I'm going to go through and say IT support. I'm going to assign it to myself, and I'm going to put in some notes. I'm just going to put in some junk notes right here. You'll notice once this completes, it's going through and going to send out a message out to me saying a particular ticket was just assigned to me. Now in this case, because I was the person who made the assignment, we have some rules in place that keep me from getting an email saying a ticket was assigned to me. But just keep in mind that if you were assigning it to someone else, they would have received that message. So I'm going to go over here and hit refresh just to show these. You'll see these journal assignments now. The first time when I just assigned it to to this one right here where I just assigned it to the open queue, and then also one where I assigned it to a specific user. So you could see how those assignment notes were kind of moving through the process and how they work. Now we'll talk a little bit about these journal notes down at the bottom. I'm just kind of pointing your attention down to them when things get created. So one of the things I also want to point out is the status field area. So you kind of got a good picture of what ownership does, is this status field. So right now the status is set to new. We talked a little bit about this in the dashboard pieces about the SLA values and taking a ticket from new to in progress and what that means. And when you take a ticket to in progress, that means that you have reached out to the customer, you have set an expectation on the time that it's going to take to get that particular issue resolved or to get out to them, or you're on the phone with them trying to resolve the issue, or you're out in the field trying to resolve the issue. So remember, when we just created this ticket, it's a new status. But we also track the time it takes to go from new to in progress. So we need to begin work on this fairly soon. And you'll notice when we first created the ticket, I have some SLA contact by and my SLA resolve by time frames that are already put in here. These are calculated, and we discussed this in the previous video, by the service that's associated to the ticket as well as priority. So in this case, the service is account management, and account management has a platinum service level. Most of our services all have gold, silver, or bronze, but in this case account management is platinum because we have a much shorter period of time to respond to password resets or changes to particular accounts versus things where an operating system might have died or a hardware problem might have happened on a particular machine. So keep that in mind as you go through that process in this particular case. Always look at the service level that gets associated. So if I go through, I'm going to change this to purchasing, and I'm going to change it to the purchasing order. Does this order a desktop or a laptop? You'll notice this is bronze. And the service level process goes down from platinum, gold, silver, and bronze, and each one of them has additional time available as you move down the list. But again, it's also based on priority. And you'll notice that when I reassigned the category or the associated classification over here, that my SLA contact by and resolve by changed appropriately or accordingly. So let's go back up to status. We talked a little bit about SLA, but let's go back to status. So I have until 6/19/2014 at 2 p.m. to be able to take this status from new to in progress. Now remember, I'm a bronze service level, so I have a whole lot less time than I did if it was account management. If I go back up here to account management, say we were going to do a flag reset request, now I'm back up to 6/17 at 4 p.m. So I have less than one business day to set that expectation for the customer, begin working on the problem. So the time that gets marked in the hidden field in our system of when you've reached out to the customer and contacted them is when you click this button right here. When you take the status, or when you begin work on the ticket and you take it from new to in progress, there's a warning that comes up. So I'm going to click on this. This is always showing me what my next option can be for a current status. When I click on that, it's going to pop up and say moving the status from new to pending to in progress means that you've made contact with the user or attempted to do so, and you're working to resolve the issue. Please make sure that this is documented in a journal before proceeding. We'll talk about journals later, but let's start with this particular piece. This reminder comes up reminding that you need to document exactly what happens. So I have currently met my contact by time frame because I've taken it from new to in progress before this turned red. If I had not done so by 4 p.m. on 6/17/2014, this would turn red and a little clock icon would pop up next to it. The same thing would happen if the ticket did not meet the resolve SLA, meaning I've got to resolve the ticket before that date and time occurs. You'll also notice down below this, as I'm working with this ticket and changing ownership, managing some different things and saving changes, that each time it's popping up saying that I have touched this ticket. This is just an indicator on how many times different people have worked on these tickets. This is just a visual indicator to kind of get an idea of how much activity has gone on. And you'll also see the total age in days is listed below under the service level piece, along with the created date, modified date, and who created it. So just some information about that particular ticket that's located under service level. So again, service level really pulls in on the current status of the ticket because the contact by field is set when I go from new to in progress, and the resolve by date and time is set when I take the ticket to a resolved state. So we talked a little bit about the different statuses in a ticket. I have new, I have in progress, and then after in progress I have two options. I can either resolve the ticket or I can set it to a pending status. Now, what's a pending status? A pending status basically gives you the ability to kind of mark the ticket in an on-hold state based on something that you're waiting on. You're waiting on the user to get back in touch with you. You've called and left them a voicemail. You're waiting on a piece of software to come in. You're doing some research. So let's set this ticket to a pending status. I'm going to click pending. I'm going to select a pending reason. The customer's not available. Maybe they're on vacation for a week. Waiting on a response. So I'm going to click on this and press the OK button. You'll notice as soon as I do that, I have a review date that automatically comes up. This review date gives you the ability to set a warning for yourself to come back and look at this ticket. And remember, I talked about in the previous dashboard video, when you're on your primary dashboard, you have a review date or a pending violation field, and that is any ticket that has a pending reason set that is past the review date. By default, it sets it 1 week out. I'm going to go in and say set this one to 2 days. You'll notice it has not saved, and I know that because this area right over here is still not grayed out. I could hit the save button here, or I could hit the save button there. I'm going to hit save right here, and it grays out the save button over here. So that means I have 2 days before it starts popping up on my dashboard again, reminding me that I need to come back and take a look at this ticket. Now remember, anytime that you're making changes to these things, you need to be noting exactly what's going on in the journals. We'll talk about journals a little bit later, but I just want you to understand, even though you're making changes to all of these fields here and all of that data is tracked, sometimes we need a description of exactly what's going on, because if the customer called in and the help desk took a look at this ticket and they're going, well, it looks like they're waiting on a response from you, but you don't have the message on what you're waiting on a response from or an indicator that you left them a voicemail, the help desk may not know what to tell the end user and may not be able to point them in the right direction. Maybe you sent the person an email, maybe you left them a voicemail. Without that additional information, there's very little that we can do at that particular point in terms of informing the customer about what needs to happen. So I'm going to take this ticket to a closed state now. Let's say I waited on a response from a user, I did get in touch with them, and we got this issue resolved because we were on the phone, we set up an appointment, whatever. So I'm going to go in, the first thing I'm going to do is remove the pending status. Now here's a reminder about what I was talking about earlier. Moving the status from new to or pending to in progress means that you've made contact with the user and you need to be documenting that. So as I talked about earlier, any change to the pending status or anything that you do needs to be documented in the journal articles below. This is just another reminder, just trying to keep you on task with the things and the expectations that we've set forth. So let's go ahead and resolve this ticket. It's very easy to resolve a ticket. Now I still have set pending, which is my alternate status, or my next status could be set it to resolve. I'm going to click the next button. It's going to say, what did you do to solve the problem? Remember, this is emailed to the customer. So I did this and that, and we fixed the problem. So the information that you put here needs to be detailed and needs to be customer friendly. Remember, they get an email saying the specific things that what you did to resolve that particular issue, and it may be one of the first things that they see, especially if you're sending them an email to let them know that the issue has been resolved. This may be one of the first things they see, since you would resolve the ticket after you sent them that message, and email tends to be sorted by the last received message that came in. So keep in mind that what you put in here is extremely important. You need to be very descriptive of what happened in that particular case, because these could be used as knowledge base articles in the future. I'm going to press the OK button, and now I have select the action that you took to solve the problem. So I'm going to come in and say, was this a duplicate issue? Did I fix the malfunction? Did I process the user's request? Because this was a request to do a flag reset. So in this case, I'm going to say we processed the request. Now keep in mind there's some other things, like the user solved the issue. We definitely have times where the user fixes their own problem before they get back in touch with us. So I'm going to say process request. I'm going to press the OK button. When I do that, you'll notice down at the bottom in the tab fields, I now have my close description, the resolution action, who resolved it, and the resolved date and time. I do not have a close date, and we didn't really talk too much about the close status. So earlier I talked about how you have new, which is when the ticket gets created, in progress, which is when you're doing work on the ticket, then you have pending or resolved. Pending means I'm on hold, I'm waiting on something to be done. Resolved means that you have finished out the issue and resolved the ticket. It's no longer in an open status. But why do I have a close date and time field here? Close status is what permanently closes the ticket out. So after 5 business days, the system will automatically go through and look at all resolved tickets and automatically move them from resolved to closed. Once a ticket is closed, it cannot be reopened. You can see right over here up in the top corner under current status that I can reopen the incident at this point in time. But once it gets set to resolved, that disappears and you no longer have the capability to be able to reopen a ticket. The user is also notified when they receive their closed or resolved email. It'll say they have 5 business days to get back in touch with us before the ticket's automatically and permanently closed out. So just keep that in mind as you go through that process. You'll also notice that their resolved date and time is put here, which in this case, my resolved date and time is beating out my SLA resolve time, so these never went red. These stayed blue. It meant that I did handle the issue within the time frame that was required and the values that we put in for our SLA requirements. So this ticket's been handled, but one of the things I want you to notice is the submit to KB article. If you really have a great ticket that has a ton of information in it and you want to be able to start creating a draft knowledge article, which again we'll talk more about the knowledge article stuff later on, you can use this submit to KB, and all you end up having to do is click the submit button. It asks you for a short title. This is a test, so we just create that short title, add a few keywords. Well, you know what, this is a password, flag, reset, help. We could put in a couple of keywords, press the OK button, say, hey, what's the article type? Well, is this basic info, a step-by-step, known error? Let's press basic info to kind of get us started. And as soon as we go through that, it's automatically going to create a new knowledge article that I can set as a draft and associate to myself. What it does is it pulls in both the incident description, this is a test video that I'm showing people, and the incident solution. I did this and that and we fixed the problem. Now, this is not the type of knowledge base article that you would want to put into the system with this information, but this is a good starting point and gives you a place to kind of begin working and molding this information into something that we would use across campus. So just keep in mind that once this is set, it's set to a draft mode. It becomes a ticket or a knowledge article that I own, and then when I'm ready to submit it for approval, I can do that later. I'm not going to get into the knowledge base article information, but I'm just going to go back to my home button back over here and start us back at looking at the journal articles on a particular ticket. So you notice when we talked about dashboards earlier, we talked about unread items. And once this form populates, you'll see that I have 18 tickets out of my 23 that have an unread item associated to them. And I'm going to start talking about journal articles with unread items. So I'm going to dig into my 18 tickets in this particular area. And let's look at this particular ticket. Now this is going to have a lot of journal items. And the one thing I'll tell you right off the bat, and if you'll look at the tab down at the bottom under journals, you can see I have 14 unread issues in this ticket alone. So that means I have a lot of things that are going on, and you can differentiate the difference between read or unread by it either being marked in black, which means that it is unread, or it has been read, so it says now if I click this box it would go back to blue, or I'd click the box here and it says mark is unread or mark is read. So in this case I've got a blue one here. I could read this particular journal article by scrolling through this particular piece. I could click the little magnifying glass here, increase the size of the text if I wanted, and read through this particular email, and once I finished it I could mark it as read, and you'll notice it's now in black. So as I was saying earlier, there are 4 types of journal articles. There are journal notes, which are notes that you're adding to the ticket for information. There are customer requests. A customer request is something that the user puts in from the self-service tool. So they can log into the self-service tool and put in a comment. That shows up as a customer request. There is mail history, and mail history is any email that's sent from the tool. We haven't talked about email yet, but we're going to do that fairly shortly. And you'll notice that there's a yellow button next to this. Yellow means that it's an outgoing email message. Green means it's an incoming email message. So if the user responds to one of our emails, it automatically adds that update to the incident management tool. So I'm going to start by marking a couple of these as read. Yeah, you know what, I've taken care of these. Those issues are taken care of, and you'll notice this counter goes down as I move down that list. We had this as a test where lots of people put journal notes in my ticket. You know, this is kind of hard to read. There's lots of different journal notes and assignments. Well, for one, I can sort things by created date, who created it. Remember, if this is available to the user, it shows and tells you whether or not if that's marked true. They have the ability to be able to get into that ticket in their self-service tool and look at that information. So assignments they can't see, but they can see the mail history and the notes and the customer request that we have listed here. But you know what, I was talking about earlier how there's just a lot of content here. There's a lot of updates. I just don't know where to start. Well, you can use this filter option to go through and filter out your notes. I just want to look at journal notes where people have come through and put in a particular journal note. Or, you know what, maybe I just want to look at mail history. So I can see an incoming message here, a green one, indicating it was from the user to the incident management system, or from the incident management system to the user. So that's journal mail history. I can also look at just customer requests in that case. I'm going to go ahead and say clear filter. It's going to take me back. I really just want to look at created date because I want to see what happened in order. So I know this journal note was added, then this one, then some email was sent out, then another note was added, then some more mail history, and then there was some assignments that took place, but you get a very good idea of some of the different things that are going on in the journal notes. And always look at the information on created date down at the bottom. You can save, I've created a save button down here when you're creating particular journal note articles. You can get to them. If you see the magnifying glass, you can always pull into the magnifying tool. So to create a journal article, just a note, I can click on this button right here. Click on New Journal Note, and I can use this quick entry field to put in some automatic text that we already have pre-programmed in. You do not have to use this if you don't. So I'm going to say I used Baumgart's remote over to the user's machine and did the following. I'm just going to put in some information. I'm going to hit the Save button. Now, you'll notice since I am currently the owner of the incident, and I was the creator of the journal note, that it automatically marked this item as red so it doesn't show up as blue over there. Just one thing to kind of keep in mind. But you'll notice this show to customer, and you only have the ability to control this on the journal notes. Mail history, you don't have that ability. Assignment, you don't have that ability. And under customer request, you don't have that ability. But under journal note, you have the ability to mark this as whether or not you want the customer to see that particular issue. And it changes show in self-service right here. If I uncheck that box, it changes that to false. I've got to remember to save it. But once I've saved that, I now have the ability to keep the user from seeing that in the self-service tool. The reason we give you this ability is for you to be able to put in notes on something that they may not need to be able to see, but this should not be used as a venting tool to say, you know, this customer was just awful, they were hateful. It's great to put in specific detailed information, but remember, anything that you write down could potentially be seen by the customer in the future, whether a manager was reviewing the ticket or whether or not we were sharing some data with the user in specific cases. Generally, they will, from in this case, they will not be able to see it from the self-service portal. It would only have to be an interaction with the manager or someone else to be able to get to that point. But be careful what you make note of that you don't want the user to see. Just a rule of thumb. So I created a journal note. You remember that if I changed ownership of the ticket up in the top corner, that I could create assignments, and those would come up when I click the change button. We've already done that. I'm not going to worry about it in this case. And you'll notice when this particular user created this assignment, they didn't put any assignment notes, which is okay. They're not really describing what needs to be done, and there are cases when that might need to happen, but a best practice should always be that we go through and put in assignment notes. So now let's talk a little bit about email. I'm going to go in, I'm going to click on my email address up in the top corner, and it's going to automatically pop up a pre-created email for this particular issue. It's got my email populated, it's got request information already put in place, it's got a pre-built template that's got who the customer is, who the consultant is, and you'll notice I'm the customer and I'm the consultant, but it pre-populates that. It puts the issue description in and gives them the ability to click on a link to go directly to the tool in self-service. What you need to do in order to utilize this email form is basically to select this remove and replace with your text. Don't click the delete button. Just select that particular piece and start typing. This is a test of the blah, blah, blah. I can write that message in, I can click the send button, and when I click the send button, it's automatically going to send a message to the end user with that particular message. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to hit edit and I'm going to click refresh so I can see that come up. Now, one of the things you'll notice, if I click on this right here, it's not an HTML email, but it has it all broken down. Please read the following information. Here's the message from us. This is blah, 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 blah. So that's now been sent to the user. So in this particular case, just keep in mind that anytime you send an email out to the user from this tool, it's going to be tracked. But keep in mind as well that you don't just have to send it to the user. If I had clicked on this template, I could have changed this email address and sent it to someone else in IT and said, can you help me with this particular incident, or can you do something for me in those areas? And those users would be able to reply to a ticket or the incident. So in this case, keep in mind as well that you can only respond and update active open incidents. So that does not mean that that means that you cannot update an incident when it's closed. The user can't respond to an email then and update an incident, and they cannot create a ticket using automatic ticket generation through this tool, mainly because we want to verify their identity. We want to ask them some questions and either have them go through our self-service tool, which is a very robust tool with additional information about things that might resolve their issue, or we want them to call us so we can gather some of that information up front. We do not want to create tickets via email, but if they send an email to this address that does not have an open ticket that it can find, it will automatically bounce back a message and tell them what they need to do in those cases. So I'm going to take that email that I just sent to myself, and I'm going to send a reply back from my phone. So I'm sending a reply back right now. It generally takes about a minute after the message is sent before it populates the field here, and you'll be able to see where I have responded to a message as a customer. Remember, the incident has to be open in order for them to respond back to it via email. If the incident is not open or it can't find an open incident for that problem, it will send them a specialized message back about what what they need to do. And what the ticketing system does is it looks for the ID number of the incident, this request 101471 up in the top corner. It looks for that in the body of the text and in the subject of the text, but it also looks for a special code that we attach to the HTML. If any of that is deleted or erased when they reply back, it's not going to be able to update the ticket, and the user is going to be reminded that they've got to reply. Just hit the reply button and go from there. So I've given it enough time. I should be able to check to see if I've gotten that message in. You'll notice, I just got a green one. This is a test. I sent a response back. Now, as the owner of the ticket, if I go through and receive a response from an end user like this, I'm going to get an email saying the user has responded to one of your messages. Please go in and check the status of that ticket. If someone else sent an email from my ticket and it was not me and I was the owner, it would send me an email saying someone else has sent an outbound message from your ticket about this particular issue. So the flexibility that's added in with our email feature is really huge. And you can do other things with those emails where you can just go back and view the email. You can reply directly to that email here, so you don't have to keep starting it from scratch. You can kind of start that conversation here, or you can go in and say just view the email so you get the specific data about that particular email as well. Remember that pulling email in keeps you from having to go copy email messages from your personal account like we did in Heat directly into the tool. So this gives you tons of flexibility. But one of the things I also want to point out, other than journal articles, is the SLA value. You'll notice in this case, this ticket is still set to a new status, and it was supposed to have moved to in progress on 5/27/2014. That was about 3 weeks ago. When I violated that particular SLA value, the contact by SLA value, it puts this in red and adds an alarm clock next to it. And it's an important part of what we do with these particular tickets in this particular case, is to make sure that you're reviewing what comes up there and knowing when you violated a particular contact by or resolve by time frame. We also have a system that will come in and remind you when you're getting close to these, about 2 hours before each of these SLA time frames. It will send you an email reminding you, hey, you've got a ticket that's about to violate one of our SLA values that we put in place. This ticket's getting quite old, and you can see that it's got some issues, and age in days is now 21, and it's had 58 touches. Lots of different people working on this ticket. So it should be an indicator to you that there's some things that are definitely going on with this issue. So remember, to send email, all you end up needing to do is click on the email address of the user. You can change this to whoever you want at that point in time. It'll go to that user and they can respond back in those cases. I'm just going to cancel out of it since I didn't need to use it in this case. Lots of flexibility with this tool, lots of really interesting things that you can do from here. So let's talk about assets in this case. You know how earlier I talked about where you could just add in one asset in here and it would add it there? Well, this ticket has multiple assets associated to it. So let's go in, let's click the plus button, and let's add some additional assets to this ticket. And this user has more assets than the previous user that we did a review for, and I'm going to go ahead and add it in. So this particular issue is affected by all of these different assets are affected by that particular issue. If I want to look at a little more data about that asset, I can use the little blue arrow, pop this out. Now it's going to say, hey, do you want to save it before we go look at that record? And I can press cancel. And remember, I talked about the binoculars versus the blue arrow. The blue arrow takes you to that other record. The binoculars just gives you a view of that record. So maybe I don't want to go to that record specifically. Maybe I just want to look it up. And I can see information about that particular issue now, as well as how many open incidents are assigned to that ticket or to that asset. And you'll notice down at the bottom, here are all of the incidents that are currently associated to that asset. So a great way to be able to see what's going on with one particular asset at any given time. And I'm going to hit the cancel button and pull me back over here. And I'm going to focus on the two last tabs, one being labs and one being request history. Labs is just like asset. I have the ability now to attach a lab to a ticket. In the past, we had lab profiles, and those lab profiles would create a couple of issues because the user, the owner of the ticket, would actually change from one person to another when we applied the lab profile. In this case, it allows the initial requester to retain ownership of that issue, but when I add a lab, so I'm going to hit the plus button and say, you know what, I want to add Tucker 229, School of Engineering. It pulls up who the consultant is, who the coordinator is, their email address, and a few other things. I can add multiple labs if I want to, added to each one of these. And you'll notice that when I add a lab, an email option to the lab coordinator comes up as a reminder and the ability to reach out to the lab coordinator. So I could click on 225, hit email lab coordinator. It says here is Tucker 229 that's listed right there. Here's the particular owner. It puts in their email address and allows you to send an email message to them to get approval for those changes. But it allows the initial requester to retain ownership of the ticket at any given time. Now, I could always change the ownership of a ticket to someone else. I could always go in here and change and search for a new user, and when I changed the new user, it automatically pulled up Karen in this case, and I could change the contact information and everything from there. So keep in mind that the ownership of a ticket or an incident can always change at any given time, but that is tracked, and we know exactly what happened and who made those changes. But using the email lab coordinator field does give you the ability to contact the coordinator of that lab. If I still click on the user's email, it sends the email directly to the person who is the customer of the ticket. But if I want to email the lab coordinator, I can utilize this tool as well. Just some additional features. Now, earlier I talked a little bit about how we track some of this stuff. I'm going to go into request history. Now, request history has everything that's been changed on the ticket with the exception of journal mail history, journal note, customer history, and assignment. Now, this is what you're mostly working with in terms of the activity of the ticket. But if I change the call source from on-site to, let's say, well, you know what? I haven't saved this ticket yet, and I reassigned the owner of the ticket. So I'm going to press the Save button. Now when I go back to look at request history, you're going to notice that I have some additional things that were added into the ticket. And I'll just show you another one. I'll come in and say call source and go to email. I'm going to say save this. It's automatically going to track that change, and it's going to pull up, oh, by the way, look. And I had to just resort the list because I hadn't hit the refresh button on the ticket. The following changes were made to this incident by this person at this time. Field call source was changed from value on site to value email. And it shows the original value and shows the new value. So in this case, you can see I forgot to put a period in here in this description field. Let me put a period there. I'm going to hit the save button. I'm going to come back. I'm going to resort this. When I come back and resort it, it says field description was changed from this to the other piece, which now includes the period. And I guess now I have two in that case. I guess I just missed that I had another one up there already. But it shows you what the original value was set to as well as the new value that it's set to. So it was changed to this value right here. This value was set to this value. And I can also click the zoom button, look at a little bit more information that's here so I get a better idea of what changed. Now, every individual change and who made that change is all logged here, so you get a specific idea of what happened, and every field in here is tracked. So when you make changes to the tool, it's going to let you know just a little bit more about what is going on in those cases. So we've talked about creation of a ticket. We talked about the specific screens. We talked about managing a ticket and assigning it and changing the status of a ticket. We talked about the tabs down at the bottom with journal fields and some of the different things that you could do with email. One of the other couple of things that I want to talk about are the things on the task pane as well as the knowledge bar. Remember, auto tasks are things that really the help desk uses. It allows them to quickly create a ticket and auto close that ticket out based on the things that they're working on or that they're doing on some things that we do on a very regular basis. Do not mess with the auto tasks unless you know how to utilize them or have gone through appropriate training for them, because they could make some changes to your ticket that you're not quite ready for. So just a warning, a caveat on auto tasks. But Auto tests are very quick, are very cool, very easy to use. If I went in and said new incident and I wanted to use an auto task, I could come in, put in the user's name. Once I put in the user's name and assign it to a customer, that's all I have to do. I could say now I want to do a flag reset for this user. They did walk in and came by. I press OK. It auto populates the ticket, auto assigns it to me, and automatically resolves the ticket out. So the auto tasks are definitely a cool, neat feature that give you the ability to do some other things. And we'll make some adjustments and add additional auto tasks as we continue to move forward. But we tried to capture the bigger items that we utilize right now. The last piece that I want to talk about is the knowledge pane over here. And in my initial discussion, or my initial video, we talked about how you cannot use the knowledge pane right here in the dashboard. It won't search for anything, but you can use the search for published articles, for knowledge articles across the top. I'm going to go ahead and open up a ticket that I already have assigned to me, and I'm going to show you how the knowledge piece works. So I'm going to come over here and search for a term. When I search for a term, I can see that knowledge articles that we have listed in our database have popped up, but I can also search against the different databases on the web that might be out there, like Microsoft TechNet. So I'm going to hit Browse from Microsoft TechNet and go, oh, you know what? Xbox One support. This tells me tons of information about my Xbox One. I'm going to press Use Solution, and you'll notice that pops up as a link up in my attachments field. But let's go back over here to knowledge. Let's look at the internal knowledge-based articles that we have in our particular system. And I'm going to say, how do I register my Xbox One on the wired network? Here's instructions with screenshots and the process on how that particular piece works. Short description, keywords. I could use this solution. When I use this solution, it automatically attaches it to the ticket. I hit the Save button, and now I can share that with the customer, or I've attached it so the individual who's working on that ticket can come back to it in the future and take a look at it. Now, the neat thing about the knowledge articles that are really tied into the incident management tool is the share article field. You can click the share article button. I'm not positive if we already have it working in this area. Yeah, I think we do. And it's going to pop up with an email message that pre-populates all of this content inside that email message. So I guess it didn't pop up in this case. We're still working on adding that particular feature, but it will pop up and allow you to send all of this content out to another user, to a customer, or to someone else in that particular case. And I'm just going to hit cancel to get back out of that particular piece. You'll notice this one has far fewer journal articles than that previous one that I was looking at, but using the filter tool and some of the other things that are there to kind of help filter out your work and allow you to focus on specific things are another great way to be able to utilize the tools. So we talked about how to attach different things to the individual tickets that you have, really talked about the creation and management of tickets throughout that process. I can always click on the home board to take me back to home, but I can also use the common tasks off to the side to say, you know what, I want to look at my team's work, and it pulls up the My Team dashboard and some other things with some base navigation. I really want to thank you for taking the time to look over this. I know that these videos are kind of long, but they really do help to provide you with some of the information that you might need to kind of move forward with utilizing the tool and learning how to use it to the best of your capabilities. Again, thank you for the time that you've taken, and we really appreciate it. Check out the other videos that we have, because there's tons of information out there that you might find valuable.